Hello, I'm Natasha, a videographer in Buenos Aires. I'm here with James Billings, founder of Trust Heart. We are here to ask him a few questions about Trust Heart, to know a little bit about different types of trust and a little bit about the history. Pour ceux qui parlent en français, nous aurons une traduction de cette vidéo par écrit. Para los que hablan en español, tendremos una traducción escrita de ese video. So, James, how long have you been working in trusts?
All this started in the mid-1990s, about 1995, and what happened was I was a real estate broker at the time up in Northern California, up in a little wine country town called St. Helena, and I had clients that were looking at buying a winery. It was a small, I don't know, about $3 million winery at that point. Numbers, of course, are huge today, many, many years later. And they had many rental properties. They had quite a number of LLCs set up to hold title for each one of those rental properties. And they were paying the franchise tax board we have in California a tremendous amount of money every year just for those LLCs. And the thing that was coming up was that those LLCs were all registered, the addresses, the names, and everything else on the paperwork. So there was a concern about the exposure of information. So there was a dialogue about other ways to hold title. Was there something else in order to, get some privacy and see if we could eliminate the LLCs, not only for the privacy issues, but also for the franchise taxes. And that was about the time that I came across a mentor, a guy named Jack Miller, just an incredibly brilliant guy. He passed away a number of years ago. And this was my first exposure to the trust that was specifically designed for holding real estate. They came out of Illinois. That's actually where the real estate trusts were originally used, I don't know, about 100 years ago or so. It was on a land project, it was a big parcel of land, and there was no partial releases, if someone made a mortgage payment. So they had to create a blanket, so they created a large parcel, and they split it up into a beneficial interest of a trust, and then that's how they did the releases. So that's kind of a side note, but anyhow, so these clients, so they're buying this winery, and so they were asking for something that was more private. It was about the same time that I had met Jack, and then learned more about how to use these trusts for holding title to real estate. And so they're similar to your living trust. You've got the different parties, you've got the trustees, you've got the beneficiaries, but they have a different purpose and they have a different design. So the architecture is the same, but they have a different purpose. And so we use those. I began using those, again, back in the mid-90s, still use them today. I've used them for my own account. I've used them, to help other people out, friends, family, also clients as well, and use those in order to, get privacy for real estate. And then we use the trust, and a lot of the content from the trust goes in the actual deed itself, because you can write anything you want in the deed. Anyhow, so we write things in the deed so that we show, again, that it's being vested in the trust. So many, many years ago it all began, and that's where the real estate trust began for me. Subsequent, I did all this other research, and then we adopted the trust instrument. I started thinking, because I had LLCs and corporations at the time doing property management stuff. And so one of the things that came about, I started thinking, well, maybe we can use this trust format for our property management company. A separate licensing issue with being a broker in the state of California, but for a small portfolio, we could use whatever we wanted because it was private. It wasn't a licensed property management company, at least what this particular example I'm giving you. And so then we adopted that trust format, if you will, for running a property management business, which was the beginning of using the business trust. And then I started learning more about how to use them, made lots of mistakes on how we did the paperwork and everything else, but we never really had any big problems with it. So, now many years later, I know them pretty well.
You also mentioned many times LLCs. Maybe you could give an explanation to the viewers.
Well, the LLC, as many of you probably already know, is popular for holding real estate. People like that because it prevents any personal liability. So in case somebody falls down on the sidewalk or you get a dog bite, they're not going to come after you personally. So you have an LLC, which is a state-sponsored entity. You have to ask permission from the state in the form of filing papers and paying fees in order to get your LLC set up to give you that protection. So the LLC is also similar to a corporation in the sense that it's, again, it's a state-sanctioned entity. It's registered. So the LLC has been popular for many, many years for real estate, and the states will sell them to you all day long. They collect all their fees, and they're not going to tell you about any other way of holding title, at least in the context of what we do with the real estate trust. So the LLC is a popular way that, you know, lawyers and the Secretary of State has talked about for many, many years, and it's kind of it's just another way of holding title to real estate, sometimes to businesses as well. I've got some clients that have used LLCs for businesses, and then we've adopted the business trust format subsequent to their LLCs.
Then what would be the difference between a LLC, corporations, and trust?
Well, it's a couple of differences. One is that with the corporations, LLCs, those are registered with the Secretary of State. You've got to keep records with them. You've got annual filings. You've got fees that you have to pay. Now, with the trust, there is no Secretary of State. There is no annual filings. There are no annual fees because a trust is actually a private agreement or private contract among the parties. So you don't have to register them at all. So that's one of the biggest differences between the corporations and LLCs. The other thing with the LLCs, or rather with the corporations, is that you have to keep these annual meeting minutes. You have to do the shareholders meetings. You got to do the directors meeting. You got to do the officers. You have to do the annual meetings for shareholders, directors, officers, and you have to keep those up. Even if they're minimal, you know, we met, no business discussed, you need to keep a written record of all that stuff in order to keep what's called the corporate veil intact for your corporation, or in some cases the LLC. LLC is less obligations, but still you have these obligations to the state. And for instance, like on the corporation, if you do not, you know, keep up the corporate veil, if you have any problems with it, you know, say the company goes bankrupt, you can't pay the bills, they can come back, your creditors, and they can sue you, and if you don't have all of your records, they can come after you personally, which means that you don't have a corporation at all. So that's not a very good day when that happens. So in contrast with the trust, there is no obligation that you have to the state to do those things. So even if they try to come after you, which is difficult, trusts are difficult to sue because most legal people don't know how to do it. I mean, the living trust, maybe so, but that's less a part of litigation than business is. But the business trusts, they're somewhat elusive. Not many attorneys or lawyers really know about them. They know of them, but they don't know how to get around them or get at them.
Well, thank you very much for answering all our questions. And if you have any other doubts or any question, you can visit the TrustHeart website, and see you in the next video.
All right, thank you.
Bye.